It's kind of cool. I'm at Expo West, and just got done with the CBD summit, and very informative, really cool. Learned a lot. Now I'm walking through the Expo pre-Expo. This is the first time in, I don't know, 14, 15 years that I've been coming here. 2000, 13th or 14th year that I've been coming here. It's the first time I've ever been in here pre-Expo. It's pretty cool. All the security isn't as tight. They're way cool. Putting up Jaro Formulas, putting up their sign, and gosh, it's pretty cool. Unique experience for me. Oh, here we are now. No. You've been using their grapefruit seed extract for many years. It's cool. Obviously some CBD. I'm not marketing it as CBD, but hemp oil, Nature's Plus. I don't know. This is actually the nutraceutical area that I'm walking through right now. They're building up all the biggest companies. That little video I just did was obviously they have a CBD product. CBD is definitely, and hemp is the buzz for sure. It's going to be fun connecting with a lot of people, and I heard that there's like now 1,400 CBD brands out there. Hey. The cool thing about CBD is that it can be added to pretty much anything, so why not have it in so many different things? CBD can literally CBD everything. Almost seems like there's too much CBD, but I don't know if there's too much CBD. I don't know if that is even a possibility. CBD oil. CBD oil, that looks like a pretty big company. They got these big crates of CBD oil. Oh, my friend Sun Warrior. My homie Sun Warrior. I can't wait to see these guys, old friends of mine.
The production process and the testing process are two things that you really need to drive into, and then back to understanding, do they know exactly where that farm was? Was it their farm? And can they tell you what variety was? That's a good indicator that they actually know that they're growing it on their own farm.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great issue, and we're going to have to end in just a minute or two. Harmonized testing labs. If you send something out to some lab and then someone else tests it at a different lab, you might get different test results. Is that a problem? I mean, if you're a retailer, should you ask for a C of A? Should you then go to some trusted lab and then get that tested again and see if those two line up?
Absolutely, but you need to test the testers. Absolutely. At the same time, at the U.S. Hemp Authority, what we did build in for some of ours is we can't always tell you exactly what method to test. You're not going to like that answer. The problem is you have to test for your LOQ, your limit of quantitation, and your LOQ is for purpose methods. So I can't just say you need this heavy metal test if I don't know what I'm testing. So I need to know if it's an oil or a salve or a powder or a lotion, because depending on what it is, and you're testing for specific specs, or you're testing so that you stay in maximum residue limits, also known as tolerances here in the US, somewhere else in Europe, you need to know what you're testing for in order to pull the right method. What we do want to do inside the US Hemp Authority, and we did do this with our SMPR 2017, there is an analytical chemistry group who writes and approves a lot of the testing methods that the FDA will use later if they need a tie-breaking method. We do have a potency method in there, and so although we can't force all the labs to use this potency method, even though it's free and online if you belong to AOAC, we want you to at least validate your testing to the same level. So that is written in there, and then a lot of our guidelines are coming from APA because they do a very excellent job about keeping up with the different tolerances and what what's needed depending on the matrix.
So is that just a good idea, and Mike, we'll get to you as I think maybe the last word, test, in the lack of any definitively harmonized methods, go to, remember the letters AO, AC, AHP, APA, Health Authority. You can go to some of these places and they could probably help you out.
And your lab should be very transparent.
Yeah, there are authoritative references or authoritative bodies that have addressed these things. I do want to make a point with regard to Jim's bringing up glyphosate. Again, that fits neatly into 21 CFR 111, the CGMP rule. We're required to establish specifications for contaminants that may adulterate the finished product. Glyphosate's not approved for hemp. If it's there, it's a contaminant that would adulterate the finished product. And so you'll need to look at supply issues and determine if you need to test every time. You may or may not. I want to make one point though. How many of you are retailers? And how many of you request C of A's for your echinacea products and for your chamomile products? And I really don't want you to have to request C of A's for your hemp products. It's just another herb. The system is set up, the regulatory system is designed so that retailers don't bear the burden of every step of the chain. Now, I think it's also a good idea for retailers to engage on an occasional basis, on an as-needed basis. It may be that this particular herb presents higher challenges, but I think our long-term goal has to get to where your confidence in the products in the marketplace is such that you don't need to treat it any differently than any other herb, except make sure you've got enough room on your store shelf to stock all those products.
Sounds good. Jim, I want to give you the last one.
Okay, thanks. Well, the fact of the matter is this industry isn't evolved. It's very immature. There's a lot of players that come from, we get calls, our inquiry list is about 40 a day. Probably 80% of those are, I tried CBD, or I gave it to my grandma or my mom, and now I'm going to start a CBD company. So you got to understand, I mean, first of all, I don't understand what it takes to build a brand, right? And it's like ridiculous. So that's the state of the industry today. There's a handful of good players who have great intentions and are doing it the right way. There's no question about it. I encourage you to go find them, and then you won't have to have the requirement to do COAs like he's talking about. But you got to build that trust, so you got to find your source. But the industry as a whole is not there. So don't be misled by the fact that you can buy CBD from anybody and you're actually going to get what the heck they say it is. Okay, thank much.
Indeed. And one of them is Tim Gordon with Functional Remedies, president of Functional Remedies. Tim, come on up here. He's a brother from another mother. Yeah. And Tim has been, your family has been in cannabis biz. And, right? Look, I'm going to bring all three of you up here.
Yeah.
But say something for us, Tim.
Am I on? How about now?
Oh, you're
Hey guys, my name is Tim Gordon. Good to see everyone. Functional Remedies. I'm the Chief Science Officer. And as Todd said, I've been in this industry. I was born into this industry. My father got me into this industry. My first inclination with cannabidiol was CBD. When I was handed a bag of cannabis and said, "Hey Tim, this isn't getting people high." This was in 1996. It was my first inclination. I was like, wait a second, this doesn't get people high. Why? And that drove me. That was my impetus for researching this plant, and my impetus for really creating the best healing products I could. Because that led me to a bigger understanding. This plant has much more. This plant is unique to us. Did you guys know we share 40 chromosomes with the cannabis plant? We are so attached to this plant, it's amazing. So that's me. I'm excited about being here. I thank you. Thanks to Todd. This is a really great opportunity. You'll hear from some really great folks here.
Chris, come on up here. Chris is you're marketing sales director of Elixinol. You've been in the biz for a while. You've been all around, right? Tell us something about yourself, Chris.
Well, I've been in the industry through heritage as well. My mom used to grow marijuana in Oklahoma before it was cool.
I think it was always cool.
So I came to it kind of backwards. My mom was growing marijuana. She was supporting a family, as a single mother by growing marijuana and selling it on the black market. And I went the whole other way. I said, you know, this cannabis stuff is for the birds. I'm out. This is illegal. What's going on? I believe Nancy Reagan. I said, this is all wrong.
Maybe the only one in this room.
Yeah, and probably. But what happened was, when I was faced with CBD just a little over 5 years ago, you could not deny the effects that it helped people. And no longer could I classify cannabis and CBD and hemp as a drug that kids not to use, right? And so I really went full force to help.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I just want to also point out, so your Elixinol, Paul Benham, he was like making
The
hemp
Godfather,
bars
right?
in
Godfather.
the UK in the 90s, right?
Yeah, one of the other Pauls that made bars. So there was another one up here earlier that made bars in the 90s. But absolutely, he's been doing it. He was the first one to launch a hemp snack bar in the UK called the 9 Bar. He was one of the first people to do hemp ice cream. He's also founded the hemp plastics company and helped us launch it in Colorado a little over 5 years ago. Great guy.
Super cool, good company. And now we got co-founders of Evo Hemp. We've got Ari Sherman, Ari, come on up here, and Jordan Samuel. Both of you guys, come on up here and tell us a story. Evo Hemp, come on.
Thanks for having us.
How's it going?
My name is Ari Sherman. This is Jordan Samuel. You know, we really got into industrial hemp back in 2011 because we're actually learning about how the hemp farmers up in Canada were earning 4 to 6 times the amount of income per acre. And this was, even before CBD. This was just growing for grain, for hemp hearts and protein powders. And we really got passionate behind trying to how do you revitalize our rural economies here in the United States. And, the average age of a farmer is almost 60 years old. And so we really got passionate about how do we make agriculture and farming cool again. And industrial hemp is such a great way to do that. And then even further, we partnered up with a gentleman named Alice White Plume, who's Native American on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So we kind of shifted our focus strictly to how do we support indigenous communities here in the United States and the rest of the world.
It's risky business, right? So, what were you guys doing as teenagers? I'm thinking this is in your DNA. Tim, let's start with you, because I know you were doing things that Nancy Reagan would not approve of.
Absolutely, she would not approve of it. She didn't approve of it. Yeah, it is. Like I said, it is in my DNA. It's in your DNA. It's important to us. And it's really the emphasis for me to really be an innovator and drive this plant to the masses, to be an educator, to provide solid, smart education, to do my best to be a thought leader. I've spent, like I said, 20 years really researching this plant and how it can change lives, and I've watched it change lives since I was a young man. So, I think the opportunity here is huge, and it's huge for the general populace. It's huge for us, but there's also intrinsic risk here, right? There's also risk that maybe the FDA, maybe a hot crop. There's intense risk, and we're finally getting the alleviation of risk through a proper regulatory framework. We just handed the legislative baton as the Farm Bill passed to the regulators. So our risk is going to be minimalized with regulations coming into place.
It's the 30,000-foot view. You guys are a leader at retail, right? You've been in this since before the 2014 Farm Bill was signed. Where are you at? Where are you at now? What's happening?
Well, we had a deck. I'm not sure if we're going to go through it, but I thought the deck really kind of summarized the path forward,
Boom.
which is in some ways the title of the sermon, maybe. And you can the green button.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a beautiful combine against the backdrop of a 15-foot tall hemp field, and we're going to come back to that in the very last slide. But we look at this as a true path forward. The first part of the path was the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill. There had to be clarity on the definition of hemp before anything could really go forward with any significance. And that we look at as sort of the first dot to connect. And I think we all know where the second dot is, and that's going to be with the FDA. And in spite of the fact, and I think many of you probably got this on your feed, that Dr. Scott Gottlieb is planning to resign within the next month, apparently, and that's fresh off the wire.
So, hold on, I mean, if that rumor is true, is that because he said, I hear Congress, they want a path forward
No, I don't
here,
think it
and he got taken out by Big Pharma?
No.
Is that what happened?
No, my guess is that to use a
Wait, is there no collusion between pharma and the FDA?
I don't think so. I think he's got family that he wants to attend to, and he's a cancer survivor, and he's got other things. He's got 3 young kids. So in any event, the FDA is a big organization, and we're going to talk about what their mission is and what they really care about in a minute, and I think that survives anybody that might be in the current commissioner role. So anyhow, the Farm Bill, I think we all know, it clarified the definition of hemp. That was important, it was critical. It refined what happened in the 2014 Farm Bill that you talked about earlier. It removed hemp from the CSA, it took away jurisdiction from the DEA, critical steps forward. So where does that then lead us? The next dot that we're going to be connecting here is clearly the FDA. So what's important to the FDA? What's the FDA's job? We're going to look at their mission statement here in a minute, and I'm going to read a part of it to you. But what does the FDA really care about? We can break it down to maybe 3 really important things, and they're right up here on the screen. Safety, integrity, and an informed buying decision. And I'll talk a little bit about all those things. But first, everyone here should go to the FDA's website. Whatever you think of the FDA, they are the agency that oversees the food supply. But I'm going to read this to you, and you can see it right up here. But go to the FDA's website. Among their other responsibilities, this is included. The Food and Drug Administration is responsible for protecting the public health by ensuring the safety of our nation's food supply and cosmetics. They're involved in drug development. They're involved in tobacco. We know that Commissioner Gottlieb has been very involved in that. But this is one of their primary tasks, ensure the safety of the nation's food supply.
And that's CBD's ace in the hole, because it's safe.
We agree with you, but it has to be demonstrated and it has to be substantiated. It isn't a given, because there's many different formulations, there's many different raw materials that are then formulated into finished products.
And so if you were a savvy hemp company, you would want to get, say, a generally recognized as safe grass certification, which I can't help but notice what you've done. Go ahead, to your own words. Tell us about that.
So
that was a not inexpensive.
I mentioned that's a nice inside pitch, slow right down the middle. But I mentioned at the beginning that the FDA cares about a couple of things, many things, but if we distill it down, it's safety, integrity, and an informed buying decision. I think the first 2 lead to the third. What is safety all about? We saw this coming as a company. 4 years ago, we got very involved in the 2014 Farm Bill. We knew safety was going to be a critical issue if this industry was ever going to have credibility and be able to fully realize its potential. And that is why we commenced on a full battery of toxicology studies with our ingredient, which we finalized and published in the Journal of Toxicology in June of 2018. In August of 2018, and at that point we achieved self-affirmed GRAS, and we are the only company in this space to have done that. And I'm not tooting our horn a little, we want to see everybody do this, and we think it's important in order us to get to the 3rd bullet point on this path forward that I'm going to talk about in a minute.
And that was a high 6-figure endeavor to get that GRAS status.
Yes.
So go ahead and do it, people, but...
Well, it's critical though. For an ingredient like this that has some controversy, if we're going to get past that and establish credibility and fully realize the potential, and I'll talk about that in a minute, this is going to be an important step. It's not like we're going to circumvent the mission statement of the FDA and say, gee, we don't have to do that. We're going to ignore what you are specifically required to do, which is to oversee the nation's food safety. So, in any event, I talked a little bit about safety and integrity. So what is integrity? Safety and integrity as the pillars for this industry will lead to informed buying decisions. And we think this is what an informed buying decision looks like at the consumer level. Very clear labeling, very clear what you are getting per serving size. Down on the bottom you see a QR code. Today on all of our products you can go straight to a certificate of analysis and see exactly what is in every single finished product that we develop. Down the road We see that including the genetic seed strain that is used for the raw material that goes into the food product. That way we'll know it's coming from hemp. And like you mentioned in your, before I got up here, we don't want to see synthetic. We don't want to see a marijuana strain. We don't want to see an isolate. That should all be baked in to the QR code that consumers can readily access with a QR code. That's an informed buying decision. Safety, integrity, informed buying decision. That will matter to the FDA. So what's next? Last week, Cowen, a very well-respected mid-tier investment bank, and we've all seen the $2 billion, $22 billion, and the range of market size has been extraordinary. Well, Cowen has done a deep dive on the space, and last week they're now saying the CBD market in the US is a $16 billion market by the year 2025. So if it's that big, how critical do you think it is to be able to do this part that we're in right now? There are a lot of bad actors, and you're sort of alluding to them when you talk about people using isolates or they're using raw materials from marijuana and not hemp. They're using synthetic versions of raw materials. All of that's going to have to stop. And we saw this coming, and we're in a Wild West phase right now. We will work through it, but it's going to take everybody in this industry to work together and to commit to these pillars that are also the pillars of the FDA, which again, it's beating this horse, but it's safety, integrity, informed buying decisions. If you think only about economics, 16 billion will get your attention, but I think all of you also want to think about consumers as well in terms of the safety of the products that we're going to be developing.
So, yeah, I mean, the path forward, because you guys were in it before the 2014 Farm Bill, you guys would source from Europe, from Amsterdam, and then extract it in Germany and import it here. Now that the domestic market has a more clear path forward, you're looking to source from the U.S. Is that what I understand? Is that part of the
Absolutely. So our company has supported research at the University of Kentucky and Murray State for the last 4 years. We've done test R&D grows in Kentucky for the same period of time. We're still committed to doing that this year, and we are committed to getting all of our material from the U.S. As the market opens up. Let me just kind of finish, and you'll notice
you got about 30 seconds.
And I'm going to go through this. The past, we talked about the hemp bill. The present is going to be the FDA. The future, 16 billion. This combine right here is the innovation that's happening in farm equipment. This is a double-cut combine that can mow down a field of hemp very efficiently, cut it properly, aggregate it, get it to market to be refined, and eventually get into finished products. They're working on a triple-cut harvesting kit that will make it all that much more efficient. We want to see that kind of innovation. That's only going to help everybody in this room, and eventually it's going to help consumers. Thank you.
We want to see millions of acres of hemp.
Yeah.
All right, now moving right along, we have this really exciting marketing panel. We've got Steve Hoffman, who's waiting in the wings. Get off your phone, Steve. Steve is the principal at Compass Natural. He is a PR pro representing a dozen different hemp as well as hemp CBD brands. Steve's been in the business forever. He was a New Hoper a quarter of a century ago, but you only look like you're 28. I don't know how that happened. We hire him young at New Hope. And you did Lohas Journal before that. You really have your finger a pulse on the cultural zeitgeist. And so Steve, come on up here. Compass Natural, we're going to really talk about how you market and sell your products and position it. Jessica Mulligan, get on up here too. Now, Jessica is an interesting story because she was the marketing wizard behind NeoCell Collagen. If you sell collagen, and if you're retailers, I'm surprised how few retailers are out there. Collagen's been growing 30% year over year for the last couple of years. Jessica, in no small parts, to thank for that. And you just gave it all up and jumped into the hemp CBD business with Wings Nutrition. So I wanted to get that sort of startup perspective on how you're making it in this crowded market. And then finally, we have Klee Irwin. Klee, my man, there he is. Klee, the guy, I hope you all read that quote. Mind blowing, love that. Irwin Naturals, a big naturals, a legacy brand, and so I think it's a nice perspective. You know, we have a person who's been in the business for a long time. Jessica, you're a startup in the CBD biz. Steve, you just know it all and you play the guitar, so I wanted you to get up here too. So first, you two, Steve, Jessica, what are some scrappy strategies that some of these startup companies can have to try to get attention in the public? You can't go online. You can't go on Facebook. Google is putting roadblocks in the way. So what do? How do you get your word out there?
Sure. Well, there's two that come to mind for me. Something that I was a big fan of at NeoCell and is carrying through the wings, which you can do really cost effectively, is partnerships. Just really thinking about your consumer and thinking about how she spends her day, whether it's like where she exercises or where she has her tea, what kind of makeup she uses, and then reaching out to those brands and partnering with them. And then you get to leverage each other's social bases, obviously, but then you're creating also a more curated, better experience for your consumer. And then the second way to do scrappy marketing is just be a content creator. You can find people, cameramen for $500, you can find bloggers, you can find writers, and if you're a retailer, if you're a brand, just the content should be king, create value. And when I say content, it's not just selling your product, it's also really thinking about who's buying your product and what else is important to them and delivering that too in terms of content.
Steve, go.
I agree with Jessica. We like to call it info marketing, when you're actually educating your audience about something and leading with or trailing with the product and the brand. And in the case of CBD, I think a lot of education is really important. I also think it's interesting that you said she, as the consumer. My own focus group of one, what I realize is I've had, now CBD is starting to be sold everywhere, but a couple, 2-3 years ago, I would have some of my women friends who lived in Florida who would never think to smoke marijuana actually started using CBD for anxiety and stress, an entrepreneur in the industry. So I definitely see women as a huge audience for CBD.
So that just, I can't help but it just rolls right into what you're doing, Jessica, because Wing Nutrition of, by, and for women, right?
Right.
So what's the story? Tell us about how you positioned it to only half of the population.
So women really need CBD. We experience anxiety, insomnia, and I know these are words, but that aren't, we're not putting that on our label. I want to be clear here, but this
You can see them up here right now. You can see some of their products. Great tastefully designed.
Yeah, so the research shows that anxiety, insomnia, depression, even migraines at twice the rate of men. So there was like a really, really clear need there. And although, like you said, Todd, we are cutting out half of the population, it's such a crowded marketplace. I think someone said earlier there's somewhere between 750 and double that in new brands. It seems like literally every time I tell someone I'm involved in CBD, they have a family member that is also starting a CBD brand. So it's really, right? So it's just a way, like, if you can speak directly to your, figure out who you want to speak to, figure out who your consumer is, and speak directly to them, and it's a real advantage how to stand out in a really crowded marketplace.
So it's more than just pink it and shrink it when you're dealing with women. It's a whole different level, isn't it?
I've never heard that term before. I
I've
like it.
spoken from a guy, sorry. I flunked out of marketing school.
No, so the packaging it's really feminine. I'm really proud of it. I feel like it's going to elevate the vitamin space. I think of it like how Method elevated the soap aisle. Now there's all this great design soap in the soap aisle. So I'm super proud of that. But it's not just feminine packaging. What we did is we looked at different, we did tons of focus groups, talked to friends, talked to family, all these amazing women, and the same things kept coming up again and again. Sleep, stress, mood, balance. Like these incredible women from the outside, when you're looking at them, they have it all together, but they just really need relief. They're feeling overwhelmed every single day. So we married those need states with nutrients that are specific to women, like evening primrose oil is an essential fatty acid. It's a carrier oil for women that helps balance hormones. So although CBD is definitely the halo ingredient in the wing product line, it's not the only nutrient. We have a ton of supporting nutrients that help with those female-specific
Yeah,
need states.
I really like that. You see that in the market. Sometimes they'll just have straight up hemp oil, but then other times you'll see products that they would stand alone as a condition-specific supplement in their own right, and then they're kind of supercharged with hemp, hemp
Yeah,
CBD.
exactly.
So I think that's really interesting, and that supports the effectiveness even more, right?
Right.
So Klee, let's go to you over here. Irwin Naturals, you're the first mover in mass, and you're going to be in Walgreens, right? And you're looking to get into the Walmart, the CVS, and the Rite Aid. How'd you do it?
Yeah, Walgreens already put the product out in stores. So we're lucky in one sense because we were just at the right place at the right time. The buyers of the big chain stores have been telling us that they're nervous to get into the space, and in the first year or so, they really want to go with companies who they know, so we've been selling to them.
So yeah, Irwin Naturals is in those channels.
Yeah, we've been in there 26 years or so, so that's luck, right? And then also because we're closely held, I own the company, so I didn't really have a lot of politics, so I could put my philanthropy goals ahead of business risk. And so a year and a half ago, we just decided that we would take the risk when it looked scary. It wasn't clear that the Farm Bill of 2018 was going to be passed.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about that. We heard from John Rulak earlier, who had Nutiva, the hemp nut brand, and then he wanted to get into the hemp CBD, but he didn't want to risk the Nutiva brand, so he formed a separate company, Re Botanicals, but you didn't. So what's in your risk DNA? What were you doing as a teenager?
Well, about 10 years ago, I just quit business and decided to get into figuring out how to give back. And so I've been working with about 20 scientists, funding and leading work on science, quantum gravity. So then CBD caught my attention about a year and a half ago, and so I just intuitively felt that I could be distracted from my scientific mission for this last year or so to pulse my company and rally troops and get behind a particular mission, which is in this next year or two, while it's still cost prohibitive for the lower 20% of income earners in America, we feel that the most imperative thing, especially with the opioid epidemic and the extra stress that low income people have, is to make this product accessible. Like, it shouldn't cost somebody $200 a month to use 30 milligrams of CBD a day.
Right, yeah.
Here's another good one. The day that the Farm Bill was signed, December 20th, I got the press release. You said Irwin Naturals, you're giving away $1 million of CBD.
Yeah.
Mic drop moment right there. Why'd you come up with that? How'd you think of that one?
I don't know, I just thought of it and we did it. It wasn't part of a campaign. We didn't really plan it for very long. So.
I just saw this interview with Elon Musk, and I feel like I'm standing in the shadow of Elon Musk only in the nutritional business now. Oh, it just seemed like a good idea, and we're just going to dig tunnels everywhere.
Well, it's a good guerrilla marketing idea, that's for sure. And we are looking at alternative ways to market these products, since the internet really won't let us advertise kind of straight up.
Yeah, right. And so let's talk about that the internet not letting you advertise straight up. Influencers are kind of like the new frontier of informing, let's call it, and soft marketing maybe.
Well, first, I love the way Klee just slipped in quantum gravity in his conversation. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I did.
Absolutely.
I don't know, if you get on your phones and you Google CBD, I doubt you're going to see any advertising on the results page. But if you Google hemp extract, or full spectrum hemp extract, you probably find lots of ads. So what's in a name? I guess right now the FDA is trying to figure that out. I know they just put out an announcement from, what's his name, Scott Gottlieb, the director, that they're going to be looking at the CBD market. So we keep hearing this term Wild West. I think that someone also mentioned we're trading Wild West for more regulation. That really is another botanical herb amongst the offerings of botanical herbs that natural product retailers carry. As a matter of fact, Lauren Israelson, the head of the UNPA, United Natural Products Alliance, says that CBDs right now are the lifeblood of independent natural products retailers. So when I think of marketing right there, if you can't market on the web, there are some, and I had some slides that were really quick. I don't know if you still have them up, but of course, the most important thing is the package, right? That's the thing people are going to see first. And then you might come up to it, I don't know. So that is your 7 seconds on the shelf. And people are going into natural food stores and finding this. They're finding it online. They're having to learn about it. Yeah, go back a little bit. So sometimes select print advertising works. CV Sciences has done a lot of that with inserts in the natural foods merchandiser. What are they doing? They're educating retailers. I think that's really smart because if you educate retailers, retailers are going to educate the customers, and all this is happening in store. So that's really important. Can you go one more there? The next one I think is or go back. The next one is influencers. So actually there are emerging hemp and cannabis influencers out there on Instagram, on Facebook. When you can't talk about your product yourself, and content generation is really important, but you also have to be a little careful of it on your website, because if you say CBD, your merchant bank might give you, grief. So getting third parties to write about your products and working with influencers, and some of these influencers, these 3 are pay-to-play influencers. Sometimes it's worth it if they're writing about your product and building your brand.
Interesting. Your stuff, you know. I mean, everyone here is buying trade show booths. That's cool. That costs money, pretty good one, you know. But that's the calculus that you make when you're building. What do you do at the trade show? How do you have a successful? There's 170 hemp CBD companies here. You're helping, you know, half a dozen or more here.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for your clients?
Well, you know, we try to help them cut through the noise a little bit, because the last couple trade shows here, these last couple expos, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm seeing CBD and hemp extract everywhere, from, you know, Andalou Naturals and body care products to Barlean's putting CBD right on their label. This is going to be the CBD show all over the place, right? But it's important because, again, the first place is you have to get in the trade, you have to get in the retail, you have to see online retailers, independent retailers. So it's important to be here, and not just because I worked at New Hope for years, but trade shows, and there's another trade show at the end of the month. I do the publicity and help with programming. I'll plug it, the NOCO Hemp Expo. NOCO stands for Northern Colorado, but go to nocohempexpo.com. It's the largest gathering of industrial hemp professionals under one roof. It's in Denver at the end of this month. And, you know, I want to see more retailers go to that show to see buyers. And this industry is absolutely growing, but this is important. And the consumer mind is really starting to think, you know, CBD is kind of sexy. So I'm seeing it on TV shows, and I just think we have to keep, you know, we have a wave that we can ride a little bit with this, I think. The public is very open to this.
So when you talk retail, Klee, retail store discounts and promotions, they work for supplements. Is that going to work for hemp CBD? Same story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same. I mean, consumers want it all, so that's why we shop at Costco. So we want good products, and we want it inexpensive, but sometimes we want to go to Starbucks, and you know, and we don't mind spending money. So I think there's a variety, but when it comes to, again, the lower income people, they don't really have that choice like I have. I like going to Costco. I feel like if I walk out with $500 worth of stuff, I probably saved 500, right? And I like going to fancy places where I spend a lot of money too. So, yeah, so I think that discounting, for me, just the name of the game is to create a product, to not advertise so much. Take that money and pump it into your cost of goods. Give people better quality product and save the advertising and just let people keep that money in their wallet so they can get access. And besides, advertising doesn't work so much like the good old days, right? Because people turn off advertising. You know, we watch Netflix and listen to XM radio.
So, I mean, is that going to change? Do you guys see a shift that's going to happen when Facebook allows it, when Google allows, you know, you could say CBD, and how's that going to change your marketing game now?
You know, I think it's a game that we want to get to, right? I mean, so then it's a dietary supplement. And the other thing I just want to tell people is don't make claims. Be super conscious of déchet when you're marketing CBD products, because they're looking for you to step out of line. So don't be really compliant in that regard. But yeah, I would like to see these products advertised like any dietary supplement.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that the fact that we can't advertise like normal dietary supplements is a huge opportunity for us right now, because there is a lot of confusion and mistrust and, you know, bad apples out there, right? Like a friend of mine just bought a CBD product in Boston that had the milligrams written on the side of it in a Sharpie. And she paid $99 for it. So, and did nothing. She didn't feel anything. But, you know, who knows? Made in a garage. But we have this real opportunity to have our communities, if we do a good job of building a community, tell the story for us and tell it to each other. And all of that builds trust. I think authenticity in marketing is the most important thing. And yeah, I'm talking to women, but as a woman, like, I am shown ads all day long, and even influencers are becoming sort of like a, you know, a TV commercial or a magazine ad. We're just seeing them all day, so it's really important when you pick influencers, I know you touched on that earlier, to not just pick like a pretty face, pay them to have a product positioned in the photo. Make sure that the message is authentic. Make sure that person really takes CBD. Make sure they're really taking your product, because, you know, we all sense when the messaging is contrived, so do everything you can to just be authentic.
Steve, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, my comment on it is similar to my last comment, which is that I see advertising going to approximately zero, with the exception of the occasional movie placement. And if we think about how we're making our buying decisions, each year it's increasingly being trusted into the crowd. So I don't even go to see a movie unless I check, you know, what the crowd has experienced. So we can really look at, well, why does Brightfield Group say that it'll be a $22 billion industry by 2022? It's not because of advertising. It's because this product really changes your life, and it's profound. And so 99.99% of all the buzz is being created for free, not by advertising, but by talk show hosts and people talking to their friends. So I think our history has always been one where we didn't ever have enough money to advertise when we started, so we just developed this business model, which I call the Chipotle business model, because Chipotle spends 1/10 of the advertising of McDonald's, and yet they have grown to 50% the size of McDonald's, because they make healthier food, more expensive food for a similar price. So if we do that, we just extrude or stretch out the delta between the cost of goods and the price that the consumers need, then they will come. It's like build that model and they will come. And too many of the startup companies of artisan brands, they're super expensive. So they're high quality and super expensive. And then you don't see a lot of these brands where you mess with people's heads and you put this contrast backwards, where you actually get your cake and eat it too. That's the Costco experience, right? You get really good quality things, but at a value price. And I think consumers are demanding that. So save your advertising, put a really amazing product out at a great price, and just stay on that year after year, and you'll grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's just a good slide. This is Lucky's Market in Longmont, Colorado. They're unabashed. They've got their signage right there, hemp and CBD. And what I like is I call this marketing. This is marketing with your retail partner. Notice that they have a local sign, Shelf Talkers. And notice that there our friends at Restorative Botanicals have some sales going. Consumers like sales. I like sales. So this is marketing at your closest partner to the consumer in the store.
Closing thoughts, we've got about a minute. Jess, come on, tell us more.
I would love to meet all of you guys. Come by booth. We're in the Hot Products Hall, 141. And I'd love to introduce you to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another piece of practical advice that I advise clients, and I think I had a newsletter picture in there, is build your mailing list. It's your constituents, it's your vendors, it's make sure you have a sign up on your website so people can sign up with an email, and send them newsletters. Stay in touch. Ananda Hemp does a nice one, even Hoban Law Group educating companies about CBD. They do a newsletter. Public relations still works, putting out press releases, getting the media's attention. And when we talk about how sexy this product is, the media is our friend. So a little bit of picking up the phone, this is not rocket science. You could call Todd and pitch him. I'm sure he's gonna want everybody to pitch him, but that's actually what he does. So pitch him, send him a press release. We have, I can teach you the anatomy of press release. Again, it's not rocket science, it's a conversation, not to have just once, but to have ongoing.
An ongoing conversation. I think we're going to leave it at that. Thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Botanical Medicine Association, former member of the board of the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, and the author of Medical Marijuana and Your Pet. And the website is very easy to remember, potforpets.info. So, Dr. Rob, take it away.
Thank you, John. Okay, so this is my slide viewer over. Okay. All right. So, wow, what a group. Hey, let me have a show of hands. How many people have a pet at home? Quite a few. Good, good. So when I first heard that they passed a law for medical marijuana in California in 1996, I'll admit I was a bit skeptical. And then when Colorado passed a similar law in 2000, I was still skeptical, but open to things. And I started looking. I'm an herbalist, and veterinarian, and a little bit of a science nerd, so I started checking the literature, and indeed found quite a few studies, that showed that it did have some medical benefit, although none in veterinary species. And then when the Cole Amendment passed with Obama, and we started seeing the proliferation of dispensaries in Colorado, clients started trickling in with their pets who they had shared some of their stash with and had gotten remarkable results. Now, I do an integrated practice, so a lot of the pets that I see are in their 11th hour. They've failed conventional therapies, and my success rate isn't that good. I get to see them oftentimes over and over again for acupuncture, herbal, dietary therapies, and conventional medicine. So it really got my interest. And then when my own dog had surgery, and they gave him some narcotics, and the narcotics made him dysphoric, and he was whining, it was late at night, I shared with him some of my stash. And I got to see firsthand the results of a little bit too much THC in a dog. It's actually not funny. And many dogs are being sent to the ER by well-meaning parents or by folks who are accidentally leaving their edibles out on the coffee table. And of course, the dog is an opportunist and going to snarf it up. But he did settle down. He got a little loopy because I really didn't know quite how to dose him. But it did seem to help his pain.
So after that, I started, kind of playing around with it a little bit in my practice after having tried it on my own animals. And that's really, what I'm going to be bringing today is this hands-on experience that I've had over the last, really 10 years, working with cannabis. And when the the Farm Bill passed in 2014, and I realized, that THC really is not appropriate for our pets, except under very controlled circumstances. And I started working with CBD and hemp extracts and all the other cannabinoids and terpenes, I became convinced. And so that's kind of my background, and that's what I wanted to share with you. Let me give you a little bit of scientific information in the next 19 minutes or so that I have. The first published study from veterinarians about pets on CBD was published by researchers at CSU, and actually it was more of a survey, a study of a survey that queried even with hemp levels of THC, because the new analytical analysis labs can measure down to a picogram, which is a very tiny amount. So it's good, if you have a horse, you're going to need to pull the CBD and the hemp for 7 days prior to competition.